Good morning, Grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderEd, Blender HD. If you want to follow me on Twitter, and it's Wednesday, January 11th, and we'll be talking more about projections. Projections are the things that you'll find in Lineup HQ here at RotoGrinders. I mean, that's like the go-to screen. The most valuable part of a RotoGrinders premium subscription is the access to not only our lineup builder, right, but to all of our projections. Now, like, you could obviously, we have screens that have like the tables that have all these numbers on it. Like, for instance, if you wanted to, import them into anything that you're doing, right? If you have some process that, pulls CSVs, scrapes data tables or anything like that, you can use those. But Lineup HQ just basically has everything for you to build lineups, as well as, in NBA, you have the minutes, the mean projection, the projected ownership, floor, ceiling, then some of these other columns if you wanted to take a look. Obviously, we have, player props and situation, different types, DVA and DVAR, and all this other stuff that you can see per player in Lineup HQ. And you can get all of this by signing up to RotoGrinders. Click on the link in the description. Get $10 off your first month combo premium. Got NFL playoffs coming up. PGA is back. MMA is back. The NBA is going on. MLB will be here in April again. All the sports, right? College football's done. College basketball. We got college basketball. Soccer. We got everything for you. So come join us. You get access to the premium Discord, which includes my channel, Blender's Game Theory channel, and you get to come in and talk to me whenever you want, pretty much. But what are the types of columns there are in Lineup HQ? And if you're down with Lineup HQ, you're down with what do the rappers say? If you're down with me, you're down with Lineup HQ. It's something. Down with OPP, yeah, you know me, or something. It's something back in the day. I have no idea. But give the thumbs up. Hit the thumbs up button while we're talking about it. Hit the thumbs up and hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Good morning to all the people in the chat, like DFIC and Wataz and Kickstart and Rob King. Good morning. If you have any questions about anything, you could always post them in the chat. And then we also have, submit your questions, right? I can put this up, right? Yeah, there we go. Submit your questions for the show, and I cover them, right? Because some people aren't able to be here live, right? Or they're here live, and then they may not be here tomorrow or whatever like that. So email questions@theoryofdfs.com, and all of your topics that you submit, all of your questions will be answered at some point. I typically let a whole bunch build up on a certain subject and then kind of bang them out. Maybe we'll have a day where I bang out 5 in one day, like a wild card type of day, if they're very short questions. But since we're talking about projections this week primarily, or at least the columns that are in Lineup HQ, remember, in order to play DFS well, you need to have a way to turn player names into numbers, okay? Even if you're doing that intuitively in your head, right? Even if you're like, no, I have none of these numbers and I know sports. Like you are in your head kind of estimating like names into numbers, but probably extremely bluntly and not as well as a projection model is going to be able to do it, right? The human brain isn't designed for that. So there's all these columns we've been talking about. What does the FPTS column mean? That's the mean projection. What is a mean? What is a median? What's the floor and the ceiling mean? What are percentiles? What is the floor? Is the 16th percentile or 15th, whatever. Gimino says it's not perfectly one standard deviation above and below, but it's around there, right? So like 15th and 85th percentiles. What is a percentile, right? We talked about that yesterday. So tune into the show yesterday for a more of a statistics, like a high school math class. But there are other columns in Lineup HQ. Now, anything that involves like the point total and the over-under and all this other stuff, remember, the projections already take that into account. So if you're going to say, well, there is a 60-point projection, but the total is X and the matchup is great, and you're double counting. It's redundant. It's already in the number. It's already in the number. So you don't have to worry about it. You do not have to worry about it at all, right? It's already in the projections. So you could show up for tonight's NBA slate and not know the spreads, the totals, you could know nothing about the games that are actually happening. And it's like, I could even, we used to have a way that I could turn off the player column. Like, I don't even, not even have to show the players. Like, you can build lineups like that. Now, obviously in NBA, we got a lot of questionable people on the injury report. The projections will change a ton of times throughout the course of the day. But these are the current ones, right? We don't even have ownership up yet. But in related to the projections, someone emailed in yesterday. I'll keep you anonymous. I keep the people that email in anonymous. I don't know, maybe because they think they're dumb questions, and then they're not. Nothing's a dumb question. Well, they're plenty of dumb questions. But mostly, we're not here talking about 2v2s, right? There's this column called RGV, okay, which I utilize from a viewing perspective. I mean, it's related to the numbers, but it's a signifier. And people ask, what's RGV? Which stands for RotoGrinders value, which I'm not a big fan of just calling it RotoGrinders value. It actually is something. I think we should just call it by its actual kind of like mathematical equivalent, or make it sound at least more mathematically equivalent. And this is like, oh, this is the RotoGrinders value. Like, what does that number mean? What does 2 mean? What does 4 mean? What does -3 mean? What do they mean? Right? Oh, that's a good play. It's +5. What does that mean? Well, what is RGV? Well, remember the goal in DFS in building a lineup. Like we're using NBA as an example today. We have 8 slots. We want as many points as possible for $50,000 that fit within these positional requirements. That's the game of DFS, right? The first way to exploit the field, right, is to have more expected points on average for your 50K salary than another person, another lineup, than your opponent. So if I play a $7,000 player that on average, right, his mean is 40 points, and you play a player that on average for 7K at that same position or whatever is 35 points, on average, right, that 5-point difference on average, I will win more often if we just had lineups with just those one differences, right? A 7K player for that price, I'm expected on average 40 points, right? Mean 50th percentile. The other person 35 points. That's their 50th percentile outcome, right? We could express that, right? Imagine a $7,000 player. I'll put it on the screen. One has a mean of 40. One has a mean of 35. So to go with yesterday, to understand what that means, remember, we're talking about mean projections. Picture, I'm gonna use a line, maybe just to really hammer in how close these are, but how far away they are. Okay, let's say 35 guys line looks like this. This is his range of outcomes, right? Like this. The 40 is like this, right? That's about the difference, right? Something like that. So the range of outcomes here, like 40 has a, let's like player A, player B. Right. So A has a 40-point mean, B has a 35-point mean. So if we take the floor versus ceiling, the 15th and 85th percentiles, like this is what the lines would look like. So where is 40 on this scale? 40 may be there. But 40 on player B's range of outcomes is like the 55th percentile or 57th percentile. A's 50th percentile is B's 57th percentile. So while A will score 40 points or more 50% of the time, B will score 40 points or more 43% of the time. That's where his 57th percentile is. Okay, so not like it's not a guarantee. Like if you go in, it's like, if B beats A, that's like, oh my god, how did that happen? How did player B beat player A? I thought player A was a better play. Yeah, player A is a better play by like 7% of the time more. That's it. That's it. That's it. Now, over time, if you continually play players that are expected to score more points for their salary and you're able to build lineups with a bunch of them in your lineups and spend 50K with the positional restraints for at least in a cash environment outside of like ownership, right? We're not talking about GPPs where we don't mind sacrificing. You have to see what the efficiency of ownership is, but just in a double up head-to-head type of setting. If you played head-to-heads against people where your total mean, your lineup's projection is 10 points higher than your opponent's, you're going to win. You're going to win over time. On any given day, your opponent still has probably 35, 40, 42% chance, a 40% chance of beating you. Still. As long as someone doesn't play injured players, like it's very hard to be like a 75% favorite, a 3-1 favorite over anyone. Literally anyone. It's hard to be a 5-1 favorite, an 80% favorite. It's hard. Someone would have to play really, really bad lineups. This is out really, really low projected lineups. I'm talking about someone that spends like 50K in salary or close to it. I'm not talking about button mashers, playing injured players, or leaving 30K on the table, like those types of. Then you could have a 98% advantage over some. But as long as you spend 50K in salary, as long as your opponent spends 50K in salary, you're not going to be typically, I mean, assuming it's not injured players, typically, you're not going to be, maybe, you could be a 65% favorite if they're not using their salary in an optimal mean way, which means that they're overpaying for players. We take a look here. We just organized by salary on this slate, just based on our current projections. Like they're playing Kristaps Porzingis and DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Kuzma, right? I'm taking a look at like guys that are in, but like project really poorly. They're playing Emmanuel quickly at 6,400, playing now 27 minutes. Like 6,400 for a 22 mean projection is not good. Is not good. So like you could fill out your Bobby Portis at 23 minutes with a 26-point projection. Well, why is Bobby Portis? I thought Bobby Portis is pretty good. Not for 6,500. He's not. He's priced for like a 5K player. So you're overspending, right? So I can start plugging in some of these way overpriced for their mean projection into my lineup and spend 50K. But imagine a lineup that spends 50K but has enough points that for most others 50K lineups, it's almost like you have an additional 1K or 2K in salary. Like you're playing players that are underpriced for their mean projection. That's the goal, right? We want to get as many points as possible for the least amount of, while filling up all of our salary and our positional constraints. That's our initial, before we consider any other factors, that's our initial goal. How do we exploit the pricing? Where is there inefficient pricing? Now, you could go through and go, well, is this guy worth this and this guy worth that? And how much should they be worth? Well, we already have a gauge on that. We have a column here called point per dollar. Okay? And that's what we're going to talk about today. Point per dollar, and more specifically, salary adjusted value. This is related to the projections without being like part of like projecting a player. So we take a look here. It's like point per dollar, which means how many points multiplied by the mean. Meaning that, like we see Torian Prince up here, 3,200. He has a point per dollar value of 6.15, which means you take 3.2K multiplied by 6. That's like, what's his mean? His mean is like 19. 19 divided by 3.2 is about 6. So on a per dollar basis, you're getting 6 times for every 6x for every dollar that you spend on that player. The low end, right? We take a look at poor point per dollar players. Miles McBride Chris Duarte is 3K. He's projected for 6 points. So that's 2. That's 2. Point per dollar of 2. 3 times 2 is 6, right? Probably wouldn't play that guy, right? 8 minutes, whatever, that we have projected. But if we go to a more reasonable range, you're obviously not playing guys all the way at the bottom, but then you take a look and you go, okay, how about Miles Turner? Miles Turner has a mean projection of about 35. He has a salary of 7.1K. Okay. 35 divided by 7 is about 5, right? 5, his point per dollar is 5. 5 points per dollar per $1,000, right? Point per dollar. Typically, you're going to be playing high point per dollar players, so you're getting more for your buck, right? Bang for your buck, point per dollar. So you'll see that if you like optimize lineups, like if I go in, and solve the knapsack problem, build what's the best possible mean projected lineup, right? I'm just going to put 2 zeros in here so it'll run. We'll see that 279.95. It's not picking players. Oh, it likes this. Whenever you hear someone say, "Oh, the lineup HQ likes this guy," like the lineup HQ doesn't know anything. Doesn't know anything. It's just jamming in as many of these FPTS column points in there. That's it. That's it. You change a number or something, you need 1.1 here, and it could be something different. It's not picking players. Just saying, based on these numbers, and these positions, here's how you spend $50,000 in the most salary efficient way. Getting the highest point per dollar, the highest salary adjusted value. 279.95, 50K. Right there. Holiday, Connaughton, Anderson, Stewart, Gobert, Washington, Giannis, and Shamet. Based on whatever our current projections are, which are probably going to change 40 times by the games tonight. Now you go, well, Torian Prince and Jordan Goodwin, they have the highest point per dollar value. Why aren't they in this lineup? Isaiah Stewart's in this lineup. Shamet's in the line. You could tell, like you could just look up over here. Right because we sorted by the point per dollar column in our projections. We go, well, Stewart's in, Shamet's in, Dwayne Washington's in, Rudy Gobert is in, Pat Connaughton is in, Kyle Anderson is. You're going to see, oh, wow, a lot of the players that have high point per dollar values end up in a lot of lineups because you're getting more bang for your buck. And why wouldn't you want that? But the highest point per dollar value is Torian Prince right now. Why isn't he in here? Why wouldn't the highest one? Why wouldn't the highest one be in there? Do you have an answer to that? I'll let the chat see if they can figure it out. We have some smart people in the chat. How come I just made an optimal mean lineup, that's the highest you can get on the mean projection, 279.95. And apparently based our ownership is stuck on Dwayne Washington being 73% owned and everyone being 0% owned. So that's obviously wrong. I hope everyone else is 0% owned. I'll just own someone and probably win a GPP. So a lot of people will talk about point per dollar. Oh, I'm going to play the best point per dollar players. Why is there a flaw in just thinking in terms of point per dollar? Some people, Matt Kajeski says lineups, not players. That's correct also. That's related to it. DFIX says it doesn't score enough gross points. That's more of the reason. There's an opportunity cost to every slot in your lineup, right? There's an opportunity cost. There's eight in NBA we're looking at. This could be in any sport. I'm just using NBA as an example. There's opportunity cost to using a player in your lineup. Once you use a player in your lineup, you only have 7 slots left. And you have the ability to spend up to $50,000, $50,000 in salary. So let's say I used the top point per dollar plays, right? I used Taurean Prince, right? I used Jordan Goodwin, right? Just based on 6.02, got to use him, right? So I'm putting him in. Isaiah Stewart, Landry Shamet, Landry, right? Fit him in, right? As long as it fills their positional requirement, we'll just go down the list, right? Dwayne Washington, right? Do we got to Gobert at center, right? We got Dyson Daniels, right? He's 5.78. He's even higher. We got a utility position, Pat Connaughton. I'm using the highest point per dollar. Literally the 8 highest point per dollar plays. You can see on the sidebar. It comes out, right? Here you go. I'm using the highest point per dollar. Boy, I'm getting tons of points for my dollar, right? I'm going to win this thing. I'm getting tons of points for my dollar. Playing Goodwin, Shamet, Prince, Stewart, Gobert, Washington, Daniels, Connaughton. Run me down. No one's going to beat me. I'm getting the best point per dollar. I'm getting all of them in my lineup. Then you look at the projection. Remember, the projection of the other lineup, that the optimal mean was 279. Okay? This lineup that you're going to jam in with all the best point per dollar plays is 206. Pretty damn low. It's very significantly lower, right? Kind of trying to sacrifice. You're sacrificing like what, 73 mean points? Like this lineup is awful. This lineup is objectively awful. It also only spends $35,000 in salary. So you're saying that I'd rather get in Dyson Daniels, right? Because look, we have Dyson Daniels in here because he has a 5.78 point per dollar. He's like the on this the 6th highest here. You're choosing because you're getting the greatest bang for 3.1K you can. And you're going to play him instead of Giannis. Now, the dumb people may go, well, I'm looking at Giannis. Giannis is only 5.13 point per dollar. Like, isn't that low? I see tons of people 5.6, 5.7, 5.5, 5.4. Why am I playing Giannis at 5.13? Only 5. I'm only getting 5 points for the dollar. That's it. Yeah, but he's 11.8K. He projects for 60 points. So you're telling me you'd rather have Daniels, because you have 15,000 left on the table, you'd rather have Daniels 17.92 points? You have the spot. You could fit Giannis there. You could fit him there. You could take him out. And you could take Giannis's raw points, $5, 5 points per his almost 12K, and put him in there. Okay, there you go. Okay. Wow, now your line is way better. 248.60. Still pretty crap compared to the 279 first one. And here you're only spending 43,700. You're still leaving what? 6,300 on the table? But I'm playing the highest point per dollar plays. So you're looking, it's like, oh, you're playing my Pat Connaughton. You're prioritizing Pat Connaughton's 20 points for 3.5K, which is 5.72 point per dollar. Taurean Prince, the highest one, right? Taurean Prince is sitting here at the highest point per dollar value, right? 20 points, 19.68 for 3,200. Yippee. Okay, great. But it's still only 20 points. Why am I leaving 6K on the salary to play him? When I could just take him out, I have now I have $9,500 to spend, and I can just get more raw points in my lineup. Where can I spend? I can play Jaylen Brown instead, right? It fits into that spot. Bang! There you go, 272. Now we're talking. This lineup's 272.93. It spends 49.9 in salary. Yeah, it's 7 points lower than the first lineup, but I mean, at least we're in the realm. We're in the realm of a line, a realm of something playable, right? But it doesn't have what Jaylen Brown's point per dollar is only 4.68. Yeah, but it's 44 points. You have the room. Do you want Jaylen Brown's 44 points on average or Taurean Prince's 20 points on average? You have the space to do it. You still need to score points. Who cares that it's not the best bang for your buck? For the lineup, now you're getting raw. Some of your spots will have high point per dollar values. And some of your spots will just be, I just need points in those spots. It's going to be points rather than, what am I going to leave 10K on the table and not get points? So yes, like Matt Kujeski says, it's about lineups, not players, right? Most likely you're not playing all the top point per dollar values because there's an opportunity cost in having in a lineup spot. In NFL, you're not going, I'm going to play 3K receivers. I'm going to play 3K receivers and the cheapest defense and a 5K quarterback because it's the highest point per dollar value. I'm going to play a $4,800 running back. You have all the money in the world. You're going to be sitting there with a lineup that has at least 16,000 on the table, and you're like, oh, I'm going to play Khalif Raymond at 3K over Justin Jefferson because Justin Jefferson doesn't have the best point per dollar value. Point per dollar isn't the be all end all. Now you see when we built the optimal, right, which the lineup HQ does for us based on the current projections, and if you change the projections, you can change whatever you want, right? Solves the knapsack problem. 279.95. It still probably can. We saw. Look, it contains Isaiah Stewart, Shamet, Washington, Gobert, Connaughton, Anderson. It typically contains good point per dollar values towards the top. Not all of them. The ones that fit the certain amount of points at the certain positions that makes it so they could jam in as many of these median or mean fantasy points into that lineup. So point per dollar value doesn't mean as much as you think it means. Well, how do we know? Why is it playing Stewart? Why is Stewart fitting in this lineup? Why is Shamet fitting in this lineup? Why is Washington fitting in this lineup? And why is Gobert fitting in this lineup? But not Taurean Prince, but not Dyson Daniels. If you look on the screen, if you're paying close enough, I don't know if I have to zoom in. These players have higher RGVs for the salary, right? RGV, RotoGrinders value. I don't like the fact that we call it RGV. It should be called salary adjusted value plus minus. That's what it should be called. That's what you should be thinking of it as. Okay? So what is salary adjusted value? Salary adjusted value is similar to point per dollar value, but it needs to take into account the salary of the player, right? So point per dollar is just, if a 3K player projects for 30, that's 10x. If a 3K player projects for 15, that's 5x, right? But there's a big difference between the 3K player projecting for 15 and projecting for 30. The same way that, let's say, for instance, I'm going to bring this back up, right? Let's get rid of this. Well, let's say we have a player. I'm going to put it on the screen. That is 10,000. He's a 10K player, $10,000 player, right? And then we have let's say a 3K player, right? I'll use the extreme example. Okay. Let's say this guy's projection is mean-wise, 50 points, right? So that would be 5x, 5 point per dollar, right? This guy had a 5 point per dollar, 5x. It would be a 15 point projection. Are these two players equal? No, they're not. The 3K player that only scores 15 on average is worth way, way less than to you because of it takes up a spot in your lineup. A 10K player that scores 5x is worth way more than you. The only reason you wouldn't be able to play one over the other is only due to salary. So from a salary expectation, from point per dollar purposes, like they're not they're the same. They're the same. You're getting the same amount of points per dollar, but from a salary adjusted perspective, the 10K player is worth way more than you. It's worth way more to you. What happens if this 3K player had a 6x speed, right? His projection was 18. Oh, now the 3K player well worth it to you. Probably not either. I'd still prioritizing having the 10K player over the 3K player. Even though the 3K player will give you 6 points per dollar. I can jam that in. I can get 2 studs, right? I can play 2 10K players. I can play 2 of these guys, right? I can play these 2 guys. They're both at 10K. They both get 5x on average as a mean projection. And I'll be able to jam in this 3K guy that on average gets 18 points. Still probably not good enough. It's still probably not good enough for 3K. 5x is probably good enough for 10K. Maybe not for GPPs, but I mean close. But 3K for 8, it's not good enough. Well, what if his projection was 21? 7x. Is that going to be good enough? Oh, you're getting there. It's still only 21 points, right? I can find plenty of players that score 20 plus points. They're probably more like 4K, 4,500. But I can find those guys, right? I can find a 5K guy that scores 30 points, the 6x projection. I can find that guy. I can if I have the salary and I have the spots, I'm gonna play the 5K guy. Right? The 10K guy, like imagine the 10K guy with a 7x projection. 70 median. Like that would be amazing. Dude, I'm gonna play that guy all the time because not only is his raw points high, his point per dollar is ridiculous also. So yeah, that guy would be ridiculous. Like, they would be high owned. You'd be jamming that guy in. But as you go up in salary, the multiplier, the point per dollar multiplier, is going to go down. You're going to get more of a spread like this. You're going to get more of something that looks kind of like 3K player, 7K player that projects for something that 7 times 5, something 35, 5x, something like this. Right, this is the point per, this last one is the point per dollar column. So if you just sorted by point per dollar, you'd be like, well, you're going to find a lot of cheap people that, from a mean perspective, the average, give you more bang for the buck, but it's still not that many raw points. So that's why we need to adjust for salary. And how do we adjust for salary? Well, we need to assign or come up with or estimate, or you do it yourself. Add a constant. We basically have to add a constant to judge it against. So in NBA, it could be whatever. This constant could be whatever that you're judging against to get the salary adjusted value. You could say it's 12. I could say it's 5. I could do 4x plus 5. You could do 5x plus 10. Or you could do 6x plus 2. You can do whatever the hell you want. Just so you can have a baseline on how to judge players at certain salaries. So you're not overweighting these cheap players with high point per dollar values, and you're not underweighting high price guys with a lot of raw points, but not as much point per dollar because they're worth it in your lineup. So like in basketball, a lot of times, and also it could be adjusted for the slate. So if this is the point per dollar value, right? The point per dollar value is 5x. Let me move this up here. We get columns. Point per dollar, right? What's salary adjusted value plus minus? How are we going to get that number? Okay. Right. Well, we want to compare it where we're going to say that a player's expectation at a certain salary, at salaries, should be 5x plus 10. Something like that. Or 4x plus, let's just say for this, just because it's on the screen, 4x plus 10. 4x plus 10. Or 4x plus, probably 4x plus 15. Even. Let's say we just say 4x plus 15. Which means we need to, what's the salary? 10K. 10 times 4 is 40. Plus 15 is 55. So we're saying that a 10K player salary adjusted expectation to hit our baseline is 55. Okay? Just it could be, this could be 5x plus 10, it could be whatever. But come up with something that needs you need a constant of what you're looking for. Use it for whatever you think of making value. If you had a 10K player, what would you be happy with? If the answer is 70 points, then go by that. But you have to add the constant. So it'll be 6x plus 10. If that's, you wouldn't be happy with anything other than 70 points. You're not going to find many players that have a salary adjusted plus value. But I mean, it's something that it's a baseline. It's all going to be relative to other players anyway. So let's say you do 4x plus 15. You do 5x plus 10. I think that's the most common one in NBA. So I'm going to take out the second 10K guy. Okay. So now if we do 4x plus 15 for the 7K player. Okay. So what's 4x? 4 times 7 is 28. 28 plus 15. Yeah, maybe we made this too high. Let's do 4x plus 10. Only so I can show at least some positive values. So 4x plus 10 right here for the 10K player would be 50. Right? 4x, 7 times 4 is 38. Right? 7 times 4 is 28 plus 10 is 38. Right? So 38. This would be the expectation at 4x plus 10. Right? We're not going to worry about the player yet. So at 5K, what would it be? 5 times 4 is 20. Plus 10 is 30. So the expectation, salary adjusted expectation should be 30. 3K times 4. 3 times 4 is 12. Plus 10 is 22. Okay? What we're saying is that any 10K player, no matter what the price or whatever, what the mean whatever projection it is, we're setting a baseline at 4x plus 10, 50 for all the players. So a 7K player has should have an expectation of a mean of 38. A 5K player should have the expectation, salary adjusted, of a mean of 30. A 3K player, that baseline, we want to adjust it for every salary so we can judge all the players similarly, regardless of their salary. We are adjusting for salary. So now that we did that, we have the salary adjusted plus minus. So how many points on average, right, the mean, compared to this baseline is this player? So let's say the 10K player was had a 52-point projection. Mean. Remember, we're talking about, whenever we say projection, we're talking about the mean, the middle, right? The average. So if this 10K player had a 52-point projection, our baseline for what we expect for a 10K player is 50. So their salary adjusted plus minus is 2. They project for 2 points higher than they should be for a 10K player. This 7K player projects for 35. Our expectation are what we consider making value, which could be whatever baseline you want to use. we have 4x plus 10 here. 38. That's our baseline. 38. We expect a 7K player on average to score 38 points. Well, he projects for 35. That means his salary adjusted value is -3. If you were comparing this 7K player to another 7K player or another 5K player or whatever, that this salary, you're getting 3 less points on average for that salary for a 7K player. This 5K player, okay? Let's say this 5K player projected for 32. Well, his expectation, or even 31. What's the baseline? 30 points. He projects for 31, so his salary adjusted plus minus is +1. But let's say it's +2, right? So I can make a point. So let's say his projection was 32. Baseline expectation was 30. So he's +2. Does that make this 10K player and 5K player equal? They're both at +2. No, actually, the 5K player is a little bit more valuable, right? Because percentage-wise, in comparison, a 10K player that's expected to score 2 more points on average than the baseline, well, a 5K player scored 2 more points above the baseline. It's like, it should be 4, right? I mean, like, you understand what I mean. Like, although they're both +2, the 5K player is worth more, especially if there are 5K players that don't have a +2. A 10K player with a +2, there may be another guy with a +1. What's the difference between a 51 and a 52 and a 51 point projection? Like, as you go down in salary, the values of having a higher plus minus go up. So now how about this guy? This guy has a 7x projection. Remember, this 3K guy, 21 points. 7x point per dollar. Got to play him, right? But we set our baseline as 4x plus 10, which is 22. So this guy actually has a negative salary adjusted value, plus minus. So we can make everything fair, everything even, everything adjusted for salary. We need to create this baseline. What is the baseline? So now we can judge all players equally to each other and what they provide to our lineups over other players of that salary or of other salaries. We need to adjust for salary, hence the term salary adjusted value. That's why in Lineup HQ, I'd rather it be called SAV, if anything, and not RG value, right? And you can even see in the description, RotoGrinders value. You hover over it on Lineup HQ. Projected points over or under the RotoGrinders implied value threshold. The implied value threshold, 4x plus 10, whatever RG is using on that slate. So when you look at this column, that's what the RGB column is. Look, we could go by salary, right? Right? Jason Tatum, right? Projects for 50 points, which is a half a point lower than what a 10.8K player should be. The baseline. Kristaps Porzingis, 9,600. He still projects for 42. It's not like he's not going to score a lot of points. But his median projection or mean projection is 3 points lower. It should be 45. Right? If he was the average $9,600 player, we expect a 45 point projection, but he's only at 42. So that's why the -3. Anthony Edwards, 2.39 plus 2.39. Does that make him a good player? No, it just means that he projects for 46. And a $9,100 player, his expectation should be 44. So it's +2. That's what the RGB column is. So you'll notice that when you build lineups, the players that have higher RGV values that could fit in lineups are typically going to be there. That if you sort by the RGB column, if you're playing cash games, especially. And you want to know who the best plays are. Even if you're playing GPPs, I mean, you'll find that when you sort by the RGV column, you'll also notice, wow, these guys are also high owned. Right? That'll most likely happen. If you want to know the best plays, you want to show up 5 minutes before a slate. You're like, I have no idea what's going on with the NBA tonight. I just want to make a lineup to sweat. I'm going to play a head-to-head against my buddy. That's it. That's all you're doing. Load up lineup HQ, sort by this RGV column, and then there you go. Anything that shows up in frame, those are the best plays. Now, can you get Gobert and Jokic in the same lineup together? Probably not, because they're both expensive. So even if you're not coming and like, oh, what's the knapsack problem, optimal, whatever like that, which you could, there's probably 20 lineups within 1 point of each other. But if you just simply want to know, like, what were the best plays today? Well, here you go. Here are the best plays. Done. It's done. Right? We already turned player names into numbers. We do that for you here. We do that here at RotoGrinders. You know, who's the best value for my lineup? Not who's the best point per dollar value, but who's the best salary adjusted value for my lineups? We'll just sort by the RGV column, which should be called the salary adjusted value plus minus column. And there you go. Now, does that mean that a poor RGV player can't do well? It's like, no, they still have ceilings. Jason Tate, like, if we take a look at the difference between Giannis, I mean, that's a slightly even different price range, right? So let's say Morant and Young, they're both point guards, right? Like Morant, plus 0.68, which means he projects for like 49, but a player at 10-3 should be like, his expectation should be like 48. Then Trae Young is 9,900 at 46-point projection, and he's like a quarter of a point below the expected line. That means that Trae Young is going to be awful today. No, that doesn't mean anything. That's the median. That's the middle, right? Some guy is +1 and another guy is -1. You know what the difference between Jaylen Brown and Jaylen Brown and Anthony Edwards? I'm trying to compare the two. Jaylen Brown -109. Anthony Edwards +239, which actually makes Edwards higher projected than Brown for lower salary. And you go, well, then Edwards is easily a better play than Jaylen Brown. That's what people would say. Got to play Edwards over. If I had a choice between, if someone asked me, 1v1, Edwards or Brown. This is why these questions are done. It's like, well, projection-wise, Edwards projects better. Like, if you're not considering ownership or anything like that, you know, any other factors, like, well, I would play Edwards over Brown. Then Edwards goes out and scores X amount of points, and Jaylen Brown outscores him by 2 points. You come back and you go, I thought you said Edwards is better than Brown. I said, on average, the difference between their projections is 2 points. It's 2 points. Yes. Well, you know what that means when the difference is 2 points? Anthony Edwards beats Jaylen Brown in fantasy points like 52% of the time. That's it. That's it. That's all it is. We're comparing mean, or median, middle, average, on average. If we played this out 1,000,000 times, Edwards, based on our model, at the current projection point, will beat out Jaylen Brown 52% of the time. Something like that. But Anthony Edwards is +239 RGV. But Jaylen Brown is -109 RGV. Yeah, those are based on averages. So there's no way that anyone can say that Anthony Edwards is a significant. Oh my God, I can't believe you're playing Jaylen Brown over Anthony Edwards. I mean, like, if you're coming into thinking psychologically that way, of like, well, I can't give up 2 points projection, even in my head-to-head line. Like, dude, it's a basket. It's 2 points. It's a rebound. It's barely over a rebound. We talked about variance. We talked about the range of outcomes. We didn't talk about variance technically, right? Well, we technically talked about variance without saying variance, but we talked about, oh, these range of outcomes look like they're so wide. They're so wide, even within one standard deviation. So if you're looking at the RGV column and going, it's what if someone's -2, I can't play him. That doesn't. Of course you can. You can. It's still raw points. Like I can't. I'm just going to sort by RGV and play no one that's minus. Well, you're going to miss out on a lot of good players, right? Oh, I can't play Trae Young today because he's -0.29. His expectation for 9,900 is a quarter of a point lower than it should be. But CJ McCollum, got to play him because he's plus 1.41. The difference between the two, that's an assist. It's one single assist, right? And they have similar ceilings. So there will be occasions where some guy's RGV or salary adjusted plus minus is way high. That's typically the scenario where some guy like 4K projects for 40 points. You know, like even at yes, the RGV 12 or okay. Which means on average you're sacrificing that amount of points by not having them. So this is how you use that column. This is how you use lineup HQ. I mean, look, just simply by viewing this stuff. Even if you're building one lineup, you're building 3 lineups by hand. You're not even using the lineup builder. You're just saying, okay, I want to see the projections update, right? Like 5:30 injury report, NBA, it could be all the sports, NFL, anything. We see the update. We have the update times on all of us, the ownership on the projections. Obviously, you can bring your own in, right? Even if you upload your own, we're going to compare it to the threshold value and give you an RGV, give you a salary adjusted value plus minus. Even if you put in your own projection, if you change the projections, it'll change this column. So you can do that. But you can just come here and go, based on our projections, what players are more likely to get into lineups than not? Well, the ones that have positive expectation for the salary, or more than that. But depending on how many players are able to do that, you may have a position where there aren't many. Like we ran this, right? And what do we have? Pat Connaughton was like -1.74, but he's in this optimal lineup. Yeah, well, you needed a small forward to fill it just from a positional requirement to fit everyone in, to fit Giannis and Stewart and Shamet and Gobert and Anderson and Washington and Holiday, right? Like Connaughton has enough raw points, and he happens to fit the spot that we need positionally, and there you go. Even though he's -1.71, he's still in this lineup. So does anyone have any questions in the YouTube chat about salary adjusted value compared to point per dollar value? So I get this question a lot. I get what does RGV mean a lot. We get that in the NBA chat here. We get that a lot. Well, what does that mean? And then they think it means, we tell them what it means and they don't, like, oh, I'm just going to play guys with high RGVs. It's like, in general, that's probably not that bad of an idea. But it's not just that. I mean, you're probably going to be playing guys with minus RGVs, right? I'm going to play guys with high point per dollar value and add high RGV. Okay, these are probably the most owned players on the slate. So how are you getting different? Right, now you have to compare that to ownership, which we didn't even talk about, right? We're just talking about what it means in more of a head-to-head cash game type of environment, just so you can weigh the projection against it. Because people take it away way too far. They think they just have to sort. I'm going to go game by game and get rid of anyone under 1, I'm getting rid of. On certain slates, I may actually not. You're not far away. You just never played anyone that was on large slates, I guess. But also, you're probably missing on low-owned plays. Because if you're just like, oh, I'm only playing the high salary value adjusted players, good luck playing all 25% players in your line. I mean, those are the best plays. It's not that hard. That's why I said, when you tune into Crunch Time, right? NBA Crunch Time. We have Grinders live later today, right? Crunch Time. Right after that, right before lock. If you've never listened to that show or you've never used Lineup HQ, well, listen to that show. Listen to Andy, right? Read his core plays article on NBA, which is a part of premium. So click on that link in the description, get $10 off your first month. You'll notice, he'll go, okay, let me go to Lineup HQ and take a look at like the guys that have like the highest RGVs, the highest salary adjusted value plus minuses. And you look and you see some of these guys. And then you go to Andy's core plays article. Oh my God, it's almost like it's the same people. It's almost like it's the same people. Now, Andy will obviously give you a lot of reasoning behind it and a lot of context or anything. But if you kind of want the cliff notes, you just go to Lineup HQ and just sort by that column. Here are the best plays. Feel free, go off and build whatever you want, right? Difference in time is that this only takes 2 seconds. So if you want to, hey, I read Andy's article when I play NBA. I do, right? But I also, a lot of times I don't have anything to do at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's like, okay, I want to read Andy's stuff. I cheese, right, during MLB season. I read the $1 Million Musings every day that I play MLB. I read every single day. But you could also just go to our projections and sort by the column, and here are the pitchers, here are the hitters, here are the stacks. There you go. I could do that in about 4 seconds, right? I could. But I read it. Also, I read it because of jokes. Some of the jokes. Dave puts in some jokes in there, makes it interesting, but he gives you the context. So like how I always describe it as, here are the cliff notes, are the numbers. Like if you just want to go by the numbers and you don't even have to know anything about the sport pretty much, you can just go right to Lineup HQ and here are the projections. And sort the numbers out, be better at arranging the numbers better than your opponents. But if you want an explanation, if you want a context on the projections, that's what you read the articles for. You go, I don't get why this guy projects for this well. There must be something going on. Well, Andy will tell you in NBA. Cheese will tell you in MLB. Why is this garbage pitcher projecting so much better than I should have expected? If you go into the article, Cheese is probably going to tell you that so-and-so is not going to be in the opponent's lineups. Their strikeout rate is 27.8% to left-handed pitching, right? The wind is blowing in and whatever. You'll get all that content. It'll explain the projections to you. So if you want that, you got it. You don't need it. And if you didn't even have, let's say for some odd reason you didn't have Lineup HQ, and you were able to read Andy's core plays article, like you'd get that information also. These are the best. I mean, they're going to be the highest owned plays also. So they're one and the same. They work together, right? Some people, like I said with this show, some people are immersive learners. I'm that type. So you tell me I could learn something. There's 300 episodes of. I'm starting with episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. I'm binging and I'm watching it 12 hours a day for the next 2 months. Some people aren't that. Some people need the clip notes. Some people need a bit of both. So if you're the type of person that isn't comfortable just blindly taking numbers and arranging them, and you need context, and you need kind of that sports, like I'm in this, not fully for just to make a profit, that's what the goal of this show is, to teach you to become a good DFS player, a better DFS player, and that the scoreboard of good or better or everything is ROI, it's profit. Not even raw profit, but just being a winning player. So your expectation is you put money in, and at the end of the year, you have more money than you started with, right? That's how we're judging it. Not who knows the most about sports. Just who makes the most money on average for the dollars that you spend. Something like that. So if your goal is aligned with that, then maybe you just, I could show up for any slate, not know anything what's going on. We do all the work for you as far as turning the player names into numbers. Your job is to arrange the numbers. Good. Done. But if you're the type that likes to be immersed in sports and you enjoy the nuances of that, yeah, we have tons of content. We have tons of free content as well as premium content for that. So if you're sitting there at 5 o'clock going, yeah, I'm waiting for the injury report to come out, like, we have our premium articles. We have the grind down, displays all the matchups on an NBA slate. We have all of that. You can read it. Are you going to get anything out of that you couldn't get out of the numbers? Well, sometimes you can. Sometimes you may get some like fragility situations where like we're projecting a guy for X amount of minutes, but we're not sure about the starting lineup yet. This may change. Like we think that this guy starts and plays 26 minutes, but then the other guy comes in and gets more usage or something. Like there's some type of situation where it's a little bit fragile. Like maybe you'd want to know that before just like going in and going, oh yeah, this guy's going to get 32 minutes. It's like, well, it could be somewhere between like 26 and 34, depending on if they run this guy or run that guy. That's what's going to be in our content, on our shows. You watch Grinders Live, you watch Crunch Time, in our articles, our premium content, all of that type of stuff. The context. So if you want to get the context, watch all the shows, read all the articles. If you don't need the context, don't care about the context, don't think you need it, the projections will be updated. Once starting lineups start coming out for baseball or basketball, the projections will be updated anyway. And you just arrange the numbers. Arrange the numbers better than your opponents. But you need to know what the numbers mean, right? You need to know what the numbers mean. And that's why today, go through the difference between point per dollar value versus salary adjusted value. They are two different things. They're kind of related. But not exactly. So a lot of people use the term interchangeable. A lot of times people just simply use point per dollar. Oh, point per dollar. What's the best point per dollar play? Is that what you really need? Torian Prince. Is that what you're looking for? Probably someone that you're not playing in your lineup, even though he's technically, based on the math, based on the numbers, and the best point per dollar play. Wouldn't be bad in your lineup. But he probably doesn't conform as much because you're not getting enough points for his salary. So really, you should be asking, who are the top salary adjusted value players on the slate? Like that would be a much better, right? Then you'd start saying Giannis, Gobert, Jokic, Stewart, Brunson, Holiday. Then you'd be there. You wouldn't get many cheapies, right? But you get like the best salary adjusted value players. That's what you kind of look. That's the basis of what you're building a 50K lineup around. You're not building 8 players at 3K. You're only using 3K players if you need to, or they project well enough. They have to project at like 30 points in order to be worth it. In most scenarios. MJC says, so stay away from guys that aren't really projected to hit at least 5x even at 3K. Well, 5x at 3K is only 15 points. That's horrible. No, 5x at 3K is nothing. I don't care about those. Those plays are horrible. Especially in GPP, right? 15 points. Now, obviously on shorter slates, on 2-game slates, there's not much. Obviously, you have to pick people, and there's not many people to choose from, right? So you can probably maybe be picking people that project on average at 15. But on a slate like tonight, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like whatever. Why are you playing a guy that you want to fill a spot with only 15 points? Dude, you need to aim for 25, 30. Like at least every spot in your lineup or something. Very rare. Aiming for 5x for a 3K player is worth it. In GPP especially. But the main thing about your question, MJC, is you're still not thinking about DFS correctly. Why is that? Someone in the chat could tell me. Right? So I don't have to go all ape shit. MJC, he exactly asked. How he said stay away from guys that aren't really projected to hit at least 5x even at 3K. Why does that statement say that MJC still does not view DFS correctly? Matt Kajeski maybe could, if he's still here, he could chime in. The reason is you're stay away from guys. You're playing lineups. You're not playing players. You're playing lineups. You're not playing players. Put a notepad, MJC, put it on your phone. Make it go off every hour. Right? That Siri or whatever says it. Put little note cards on your computer. Right? Put note cards everywhere. You are never playing players. Never in DFS. You're never playing players. You're always playing lineups. Once you understand that, once you fully grasp that concept and all the variables, the contextual variables that go within that, you will become a very good DFS player. And then you will also see that 98% of the questions that you have ever asked about DFS, you will look at yourself and go, how is that guy that stupid? Okay? I'm not insulting you. I'm trying to help you and saying what you're going to think in the future. You're going to look at your past self and you're going to be embarrassed. I mean, it's literally going to feel like that. It's going to feel like, oh my God, I'm like, you feel like how, like, you will feel like you went into the middle of a crowd and you pulled down your pants and you took a dump just in the middle of a public restaurant and just said, I'm just going to pull up I'm going to poop. And everyone is looking at you. You're going to feel like that. Once you figure it out, you're going to feel and go, oh my God, I was that bad. You'll almost feel like you can't even fathom even being that stupid. Like, that's how different it feels. So don't think in terms of players. We're not playing. Yes, if we're playing pick one player, then that's the lineup, right? I could play any player in the entire player pool in a plus EV lineup. Right? So stay away from guys. I can play any play. I could go to the worst player on the slate. Will Barton projects for 2 points. Okay, now this is going to have to be a large field GPP lineup. He projects for 2 points at 3K. He projects for minus 17 RGB. I'm going to click the optimize button. 262.91. Okay, so if I play Barton with Brunson, Prince, Stewart, Gobert, Shamet, Giannis, and Sengun, based on our current projections, it's a 262 lineup. The optimal is 279. So it's only 17 points lower, 16 points lower. These guys are probably also going to be higher owned. I mean, like, it's going to be one of these type of things where I can probably still, I may even be able to cash it. Like, is this the game Will Barton, Will Barton comes and plays more than 2 minutes and comes, whatever. I have no idea. Like, relies on that. It relies on all the chalk doing well and Will Barton having some career game coming into the rotation that he's probably not even in. But it's still a 262 project. Like, this is not that great of a lineup, right? But it's not a bad line. I could take any player and do that. I took literally the worst player, salary adjusted value on the entire slate. And this lineup may still be in large field GP. I'm using a very exaggerated example. May still be positive expected value. May. Now this is a little bit extreme because he's the lowest, but let's go with someone that may actually be in a rotation. Right? Emmanuel Quickly, right? He's way too overpriced. Right? Like someone that's getting minutes at least, like Tyus Jones. I mean, because these guys are just overpriced. But even those guys I could play. Like Jalen Noel, or let's pick anyone. Like guys that are horribly minus 8s. I mean, like these are bad guys. Pick some minus Derek White. If I want to play Derek White at 5K, he's going to play 26 minutes, 20-point projection. It's awful median for 5K. If I wanted to play him, he'll be at like almost no ownership, like literally almost no ownership. And I just click the optimize button. 271.69. So only about 8 points lower than the median optimal. I still have to play a lot of the higher, I still have to play the popular people to make up for that projection. But this lineup in large field GPP, possibly, if Derek White has a really good game, doesn't put up 20, puts up 30, like maybe, hey, maybe this is plus EV. I can think anyone, right? And you're like, well, how do I play a guy that's minus 7.49? How do I play a guy that's, 5? You're using these guys and these, who do you play? No, you're playing lineups. Now, is Derek White at 5K going to fit into many lineups? You could probably find much higher EV lineups than the Derek White lineups. You probably have to build probably 20,000 lineups before you get to a plus EV Derek White lineup, right? Which doesn't mean you can't play that lineup. It's just that you probably have 20,000 better lineups to choose from. But it doesn't mean this lineup can't be plus EV. Just lower. You probably still have to play a lot of high projected players with them. And if those high projected players are also overowned, when we talk about GPPs, then you're in a bad spot. Because now it's like either Derek White puts up a career game or I don't know how I win first place. But there are instances in contests or whatever that you could take any player in the player pool pretty much and build a plus EV lineup around it. So that's why you're not thinking in terms of guys. What guys do I play? So I say, no, what lineups do I play? Build one lineup, then build two lineups, build 3 lineups, build another lineup. Spend an entire day building lineups, not in a lineup builder by hand. Just keep on building what you think is a plus EV lineup. Compare the projection. Keep on going. Keep on going. I'm telling you, build 1,000, build 3,000, build 5,000 by hand. By hand. You'll get to 5,000 and go, I feel I could build 10,000 more that I think are plus EV. And I tell you, you'd probably be correct. So now it's a matter of which ones do you play. So you could build a ton of plus EV lineups. And it's just a matter of which lineups do you play. So you're playing lineups. You're not playing players. Don't play this guy, play that guy is not DFS strategy. What we talked about today with point per dollar value and salary adjusted value is a way to set baselines so you can compare players equally to each other in a lineup. Last part is the easiest thing. In a lineup. I'm not saying here and going, do I play Jokic or Gobert because of some... No. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that these are the players that are most likely, from a projection standpoint, will occupy a lot of your lineups. Whether or not you play the Jokic lineup or the Gobert lineup, both lineups are both fine. I'm not playing players. I'm playing lineups. But most likely, you're going to be playing players that have high salary adjusted plus minus. In a bulk of the spots in your lineup. You may not be playing 8 guys from the top 20. You're probably playing 4 or something, a mix of a lot of these guys in order to keep your projection up. That doesn't mean you play one guy over the other guy. That DFS is not playing one person over. It's not about 1v1s. DFIC asks, how far does ceiling adjusted value stray from median adjusted value? Depending on the sport, it could. You could create your own value for that. If you have a ceiling value, like threshold that you want to create, do that. You can do that yourself. You can't do it in Lineup HQ, but you can do it in Excel or something. If you say that, if 4x plus 10 is the median and you want 5x plus 15 at ceiling or something, whatever it is, and then to judge it based on, you could do that. And if you're gonna do that, you probably want to also be building by ceiling projection. You can do it by floor projection. You can do it by anything. The actual threshold is up to you. A 5K player, I want to get at least 20 points from. Like, that's a pretty low threshold. But if you want to do that, that's fine. Because you're just comparing it relationally to other players. Anyway. But you always need a constant. The most important facet of this is the constant. To make up for the fact that the lower salary you go, you need to make up like raw points. 3K player that scores 15 points is just not enough. 25, now we're talking. So how do you get to 25? Well, you're not going to say, well, you need 8x value, because that means then you're going to say that Giannis at 65 points is a horrible play because he's not scoring 80 at 10K. So you can't judge it by 8x as your threshold. So how do you compensate by that? By having the threshold that has a constant, a plus 10, 3x plus 20, 5x plus 5, 6x plus 2, whatever it is. It's arbitrary. As long as you have a constant to make up for the fact that lower salary players have too high of an opportunity cost, that they need to score more points than that. And the higher salary players don't need to score as much. So something to adjust for that. And we do it for you. That's why I'm just explaining. Did you need to know the entire explanation of all of this? No. But so many people ask what this RGV column is. And people talk in point per dollar, and they think it's kind of the same. They don't know what these numbers mean. So I'm telling you how they mean. There you go. There's the lesson for today. That's what we do here. Teach. I talk about salary-adjusted value in the theory of daily fantasy sports. You can pick that up. The first fundamentals masterclass, how to think like a professional DFS player. You can pick that up at theoryofdfs.com. Or you can just watch these shows. If you watch these shows in the morning, right? Eventually, with all the questions that come in, now I struck, like little topics here and there. It won't be in order. It won't be structured. If you want structure, that's what the courses are for. But here we don't have structure. This is unstructured learning. So feel free to submit your questions. Questions at theoryofdfs.com. And I will cover it on the show. And hit that thumbs up button. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. And sign up for RotoGrinders. You can't get these numbers. Hey, if you want to learn how to arrange the numbers better than others, I'm your guy. But you need the numbers to begin with. And we do all the work for you. So sign up for a RotoGrinders premium membership, especially combo premium. You get everything. You get $10 off your first month. Click on the link in the description. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll still be talking more about projections. We've got some more projections questions coming in. Get those questions in. And I'll see you tomorrow, because I'll be answering them Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern, on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.